Do you want to have better intuition? Wouldn't it be nice to be able to look to your internal guidance to tell you about a person or situation instead of finding out the hard way? And wouldn't it be great to stop seeking the opinions of others and simply follow your heart? Well, let me tell you, it's not as hard as it may seem. We don't have to develop these special intuitive gifts, but more or less just simply, number one, acknowledge and accept that we have an internal guidance. And number two, ask for guidance. And three, get out of the way. My name is Vanessa Matthews. I teach hoop, yoga, meditation, and sound healing. And I just want to say thank you for being here with me today. I am passionate about helping others, including you, so you could help me help others by clicking the like or subscribe button if you find this video valuable. And stick around, I'm going to give you some tools and practices that you can use to start developing your own intuition. But first, we have to stop for a second and simply acknowledge and accept the fact that we have an internal guidance system. We have to be willing to acknowledge that it's there. And this is something that I know is so real and present in every single one of us. It is built within our spirit to guide us through this life. And some people might brush it off as woo-woo or religious or whatever, but it is very real. It is very present. And I believe that as soon as you acknowledge it in yourself, you step in your own power. And this is probably why a lot of people shy away from the conversation, if we're honest with ourselves. Well, that, and when you start listening to your guidance, well, it starts to tell us to do things that we don't necessarily want to do. We have to get outside of our comfort zone, and we don't like that. We like to stay safe and in control, right? But if you ever want to develop your intuitive gifts, you must acknowledge it, and you must give it a meaningful name. Don't look to others to see what they're calling it, right? Ask yourself what makes the most sense to you. You might call it the Holy Spirit, spirit guides. You could call it your inner guidance system or divine consciousness. But I think that the more unique and authentic that it is to you, the more impact it's going to have in your life. I mean, you could call it Sally the Spirit Guide, and it could give you the same quality of guidance as someone who calls themselves a prophet. We aren't meant to pray or worship or do spirituality in the same way. And we don't ask for our inner guidance in the same way either. And we also don't receive that intuitive guidance in the same way. Like you might get a gut feeling or a quiet voice in your mind that doesn't necessarily speak out loud, but you can clearly hear the message. You might get your most important guidance in the shower or when you write. But guess what? You never know unless you're willing to accept it and acknowledge it in yourself. And there are different ways that our intuition guides us. I love the way that Sonia Choquette describes them. It makes it easy to understand and to be guided. And it helps you to look for it in your life. And I didn't come up with this, but this really helps me a lot, so it might help you. Now, she describes intuition as the color red, green, or white. Now, red is our stop guidance. And this is the intuition that you may describe as a pit in your stomach or an uneasy feeling or a red flag. This is the guidance that tells you to stop, turn around, or look more deeply into something. This is the easiest type of guidance to listen to, I believe, because it helps us survive. If your inner guidance tells you that you shouldn't get in the car yet, well, it could be protecting you from a possible car accident that you may never know about. Next is our green guidance, and this is our go guidance. Now, this is the intuition that will lead you to all of your heart's desires. It guides you to open doors of opportunity. For example, it might insist that you apply for a job that you're not qualified for. It's important to pay attention to those little flutters in the heart that make you feel excited about something. And it's often something that gets us outside of our comfort zone, which makes it difficult to listen and to act upon this type of guidance. But the more you do, the more opportunities that will open for you, I promise. Now, white is our heart guidance. Now, this is the intuition that helps us develop greater connection with others. And this is the quiet voice that may tell you to forgive, apologize, or step away from unhealthy behaviors. It may lead you to service to others or giving more than you feel comfortable with. And, this might allow you to show up for people more when it's not convenient. And it's the type of guidance that's the hardest to follow, but it can also be the most life-changing. For example, my higher self will often tell me that I need to apologize or to look to my habits and behaviors before feeling like a victim or blaming other people. But this type of inner guidance is wise and will lead you to your highest good. Now that we're able to acknowledge and accept this inner guidance and have better understanding for it, then the second step is to simply ask. You will never receive guidance without asking for it. And I think that we hesitate to ask for our guidance in the first place, simply because we don't trust ourselves. We would rather go and collect all of the opinions from others and go with one of those rather than to turn inward and see what our gut says. The safer thing to do seems to go with what other people are saying, doesn't it? That's not so true. We may avoid asking our inner guidance because our subconscious doesn't want to hear what it has to say. So start small and just ask yourself, what is my heart telling me about this? And then just see what it says. But now, how can you learn to even trust that voice? How can you be sure that it's your inner guidance? Well, for one, the inner guidance is never repetitive, loud, or judgmental. That ego voice, that wishful thinking voice, well, it's very loud and very repetitive. Speaking of that out loud voice that is often judgmental and focused on doing, fixing, this is often the thing that gets in the way of hearing from our guidance. We'll never hear or feel anything if we don't give ourselves the space to feel, hear, and listen. So the last thing that I want to talk to you about today is how to get out of the way. We tend to think that we have it all figured out, don't we? And we need to control the situation instead of letting our guidance steer the ship. We may walk into a situation with a preconceived idea about someone, or we might already have the conversation planned out in our head. But your intuition might subtly be telling you that it's not the right time for this conversation, or that you had the wrong idea about the person. But if you aren't aware of your intuition signals, then you may miss this chance for connection, and you might just force your agenda on the other person instead. But if your mind is often cluttered with worries of the past or future, then clear your mind by simply saying out loud your fears or worries or complaints, or write them down. Now, this is just for you to get out what you have to get out, but it will show you just how ridiculous it sounds, or it'll give you the opportunity to give yourself the encouragement and the love that you need in the situation. And then you can simply ask your inner guidance about these fears and say to yourself, what do you say about this spirit? And simply listen, write it down, speak it out loud. Now, this isn't some long drawn out process, but it's a simple conversation that you have with yourself. And it's best to do this when you're winding down or when you're more relaxed. So basically, anytime you're not likely to be in your head. Now, if you truly want to live your best life and live to your highest potential, practice asking for guidance every single day. And here are a few practices that you can use just to get started. And first of all, you have to practice getting centered and quiet in some way. You could do that through meditation. You could go out into nature. You could sing, do art, or listen to music. You could look for patterns and symbols and synchronicities in your life, but then also practice feeling the sensations in your body. But most of all, once you have done this and you can get centered and feel your body, it's important to do some sort of exercise in journaling or speaking out loud. So you can write down your thoughts or simply have a conversation with yourself. That could be as simple as a check-in or an out loud prayer. I'm not just saying praying about what we're grateful for, but asking and then stopping to listen. Now, there's a reason why speaking things out loud or writing them down is much more powerful than just having a conversation in your head, because it gets you into your body rather than just having the conversation in your head, which is what we're trying to get away from, right? So it might be in the form of a quick prayer, or, even while you're doing the dishes, you could get relaxed and get present and ask for guidance. You never know until you do. Whatever you practice, though, practice it often and go into it with a childlike curiosity. The more that you acknowledge your inner guidance, the more you will know how to recognize it when it shows up. We must go into this with intention. If we're not looking for something, then, we're not desiring anything and we're not going to get the guidance that we're looking for. What do you want out of your life? Where are you headed? Once you can get clear on what you want and where you're going, then your intuition will begin to hone in on the next step that you should pay attention to. When you let your intuition or your spirit guide you, then you start leading yourself and stop following others. Now that is living with integrity and wholeness. I hope that you have found today's video valuable. More than anything, I hope that you start listening to your body and living from your heart. Keep shining, and I'll see you next time.